He stood at the Chicago IPO celebration and told every investor I was nothing more than a human experiment. Then he asked if I wanted to stay as his private partner like some disposable asset. The spotlight was fixed on him, his name and numbers rolling across the giant screen behind him. I was held back by security at the lower steps like I didn't belong in my own company. Someone whispered nearby, "Isn't that his co-founder?" And others started turning toward me slowly. I didn't react at first. I genuinely didn't understand what was happening in that exact moment. People were already laughing quietly, champagne still flowing, music playing like nothing had changed at all. I'm Ethan Brooks, and after 8 years building this company, I was erased in one sentence. Minutes earlier, his mother walked in with an attorney and placed a document in front of me. "Sign it, take the money, and walk away," she said, calm like she was closing a routine transaction. The lawyer flipped to the last page and pointed directly at one specific line for me. "Voluntary relinquishment of all equity," he said, like it meant nothing beyond a signature. I stared at those words for a long time, longer than anyone in that room expected. Then I said quietly, "Have him tell me that himself, not through intermediaries or contracts." She smiled faintly, dialed his number in front of me, and put the call on speaker. He picked up almost instantly, like he had been waiting for this exact moment. "The test is over," he said softly, like announcing a final result to a finished experiment. "You passed," he added, as if that was supposed to mean something meaningful or rewarding. I asked what he meant, and he paused briefly before answering with unsettling calm. "You know this won't work long term," he said, as if everything we built was temporary. "You're a man, you can't enter my family," he continued, his tone steady and almost clinical. I didn't say anything, and he kept going like he was negotiating ownership, not a relationship. "I'll keep your shares, you won't need to work, and I'll take care of everything." "Marriage is separate," he said, and that was the moment everything finally made sense to me. People around me were watching now, phones raised, waiting for some kind of reaction from me. I don't know how long I stood there before picking up the pen and signing. It wasn't hesitation, it was too fast. So fast, even I couldn't process what I'd done. I took the check, turned around, and walked out while applause continued behind closed doors. When the doors shut, the celebration kept going like I had never existed in that room. I stood alone in the hallway, air conditioning cold, my palms soaked with sweat. Back at my apartment, the hallway light flickered and I missed the lock twice before opening it. Inside, everything looked the same, small space, top floor, unbearable heat in the summer months. That photo was still on the wall, the day we moved in with 2 boxes and stupid smiles. I stared at it for a long time, then tore it down without thinking twice. The glass shattered sharply, the sound echoing louder than it should have in that empty room. I froze for a second, then started smashing everything within reach without any clear intention. The table, the cups, the television, there wasn't much to destroy, so it ended quickly. I sat on the floor afterward, breathing heavily, unsure if it was exhaustion or something deeper. I didn't cry long, just a short moment. Then I stood up and started packing. There wasn't much to take, and by the time I finished, it was already dark outside. Before leaving, I turned on the TV, and it happened to land on financial news coverage. Stellar Group announces succession. The anchor said as the screen cut to his image. Suit, smile, steady posture, and beside him stood Olivia Grant like a perfectly staged future. The host explained the merger and hinted their engagement was only the beginning of expansion. I stared at the screen without moving, then grabbed something nearby and threw it hard. The screen went black instantly, and I left without looking back at anything inside. On my way downstairs, I bought a bucket of red paint and a brush without thinking. Back upstairs, I wrote his name across the wall, uneven strokes dripping like something alive. I stood there watching it for a while, then closed the door and walked away silently. I didn't go home. I checked into a hotel far away and fell asleep instantly. The next morning, my phone was filled with missed calls, all from him repeatedly. I looked at them briefly, deleted everything, and blocked his number without hesitation. On the 3rd day, I went to the bank to deposit the check he had given me. The clerk looked at it, paused slightly, then said, "Sir, this check isn't valid." I asked her to try again, but she shook her head and turned the screen toward me. Status, not issued. The words sat there like a final confirmation of everything. People behind me were watching, whispering, and someone muttered quietly, "Figures," under their breath. I almost laughed, but nothing came out, just a hollow feeling I couldn't name. That night, he showed up at my door and I thought it was a delivery at first. When I opened it, he walked straight in, shut the door, and spoke immediately. "What the hell are you doing?" He demanded, grabbing me and pushing me onto the bed. "Why didn't you pick up?" he asked, his voice low but sharp with control. I looked at him, at the watch he once claimed was fake, and something shifted. I threw a punch, missed, and he stared at me like I had crossed a line. "Are you done?" he said coldly, then continued like nothing had actually happened. "You don't have to struggle anymore. You'll get dividends every single year. What exactly do you want?" I couldn't answer because I didn't recognize the person standing in front of me anymore. He replied, "You don't have a choice," and something inside me dropped instantly. "You didn't read the contract carefully," he added, stepping closer with quiet confidence. "You gave up everything, and that check was never real in the first place." My mind blinked for a second, like something snapped cleanly in half inside me. "You can only come back to me," he said, lowering his voice even further. I didn't move, didn't hit him again. I simply didn't want to touch him anymore. He gave me 1 month to think, then adjusted his suit and left like nothing happened. After he left, I sat there for a long time, not sad, just completely empty inside. The next morning, I made a call to a number I hadn't used in years. "Daniel," I said, "I need help," and he paused before answering quietly. "I know," he said. "I'm already downstairs waiting for you." I looked out the window and saw a black Bentley parked below with him beside it. When I got in, he didn't ask anything, just handed me a file to read. First page, funding source, not loans, but traced directly back to my father's fund. Second page, client origins, major contracts linked through layered paths back to my family. Third page, equity structure, I was the majority holder, everything had just been concealed. I stared at those pages as everything started reconnecting piece by piece in my mind. I wasn't discarded, I had been replaced within something that was originally mine. Daniel looked at me and said quietly, "They didn't build this, you did?" I nodded slowly, and for the first time, I felt something clear instead of broken. We didn't negotiate privately, we scheduled a press conference at the Chicago Business Court. Media, investors, board members, everyone showed up, including him and his mother. As I walked in, people recognized me, whispers spread instantly across the room. I said nothing, just nodded as my lawyer placed the first piece of evidence on screen. Bank records, complete and undeniable, with my name clearly marked as the source. The room shifted, voices rose quietly, and his expression changed for the first time. Second, contract chains, every client traced back directly through structured paths to me. Third, the equity agreement, his signature visible, undeniable, and impossible to explain away. Silence filled the room, and even his mother was stopped before she could intervene. Cameras turned toward him, waiting, but he couldn't say a single word anymore. 2 hours later, the stock began dropping, partners suspended deals, and headlines flooded instantly. Outside the court, he stopped me and dropped to his knees in front of everyone. "Give me another chance," he said, his voice no longer resembling the man I knew. I looked at him and felt nothing, not satisfaction, just a strange emptiness inside me. He asked, "Did you ever love me?" And I paused for a moment. I didn't answer because the question no longer had any meaning in my life anymore. Daniel stood behind me silently, but no one dared step closer to us. I turned and walked away while the crowd behind me erupted into noise and chaos. Later, I took back the company and everything that had always been mine. But those 8 years, they never came back, and they never will again. The most ironic part was that the one truly tested in the end wasn't me.